This video is going to briefly cover the basics of using connectors in the advanced OneSearch service of the Stanislaus State Library. The connectors are the Boolean operators and, or not that can be placed in between terms in the advanced search screen. The most common is and, which is actually not used as much as it used to be because it is really implied in searches now. And means terms in front of the word and terms after the word must be included in the search results. And actually, that is how most searches work automatically these days. If I type in the term Japanese internment in a basic search and advanced search, if I type it in Google in the library database, almost every search you conduct these days is actually searching for the word, in this case Japanese, and the word internment wants both of those terms somewhere in the result. In this case, I'm searching for books and media at Stanislaus. So the records of, in this case, books and some of the government documents and videos, etc., have the word Japanese and the word internment somewhere in the record. So what it's really doing is looking for Japanese and the word internment. It's conducting what we call a Boolean AND search. The reason why this is why I'm saying it that way is 20 years ago, most searches did not do a Boolean AND search as the main default search. A lot of searches did a phrase search as the default search. So if you typed in Japanese internment, it would only pull up those records with Japanese right in front of internment. Today, to do those searches, we have to put them in quotes. So when today in the library database, like OneSearch, I put Japanese internments in quotes, I'm only getting an exact phrase search. I only got 21 results as opposed to 237 when I did it without the quotes. 20 years ago, if I typed it in without the quotes, I would have gotten probably just the 21 results. So in other words, today, the library database automatically puts the AND in there for us, just like Google does, just like most searches do. So why do we even have AND left? Well, there are times it's still useful. And that's especially useful when you're searching different fields. So for example, if I want to do a subject search in one field and an author search in the next field, or in any field, a keyword search in the other field. An example of that would be if I know the exact subject term for the Japanese internment, Japanese American, the internment of Japanese Americans in World War II. The exact subject heading is actually Japanese Americans evacuation and relocation, 1942 to 1945, a long, very specific phrase, but internment is not in that phrase, but relocation is. So if I want to do a very specific subject search on it, I have to use the exact terms, but I should get books really focused on that topic, that have the subject heading, that are really about that topic. So I can choose subject, and I do Japanese Americans relocation. I'm getting books really focused on the Japanese internment. But maybe I want not just books on the Japanese American internment, but I want to see if there are books written about a couple of very specific relocation centers or internment camps here in California. Well, I can type in the name of those camps as well, but I don't know if those camps are going to come up as subject headings. So I'm a little reluctant to type them into the subject line. So I'm going to put them on their own line. but I don't want to call them subjects, so I'm going to leave them in this as an any field on their own line, and I'm going to join those lines by the word and. So in other words, what this search is saying is pull up all the books with the official subject heading Japanese Americans relocation, and any books that have Tule Lake somewhere in the description. So the AND operator is still useful in that sense. It's getting things, pulling words specifically from the subject heading, but it's also then pulling words from the rest of the description as well. So 25 of the books and government documents, a couple of videos in the library are about the Japanese internment as listed under the official subject heading, and that also mentioned Tule Lake. Another Boolean operator is, I'm going to jump to the third one, not. And what that does is, instead of making sure both terms are in there, both in this case the subject heading and this specific camp, not excludes the second term. It takes all the records from the first term and then it excludes those with the second term. An example of this is it's useful when you're researching a topic and you're finding there's an aspect of the topic or an offshoot of the topic or a specific area of the topic that's really not useful to you, that's really not related to what you're looking for, and you want to exclude it. The not is helpful. In this case, for example, the way Japanese Americans were treated in the US was very different in Hawaii than it was in the continental United States. So if you're researching the Japanese American internment, but you really don't want the information on how it was done in Hawaii, we can put a not and then put Hawaii. And therefore, we should be pulling up books that are focused on the Japanese internment, as defined by the subject heading, Japanese Americans, Evacuation and Relocation. But it excludes all of those book and government document records that mention Hawaii. So instead of 237 books focused on the internment, 210 of them don't mention Hawaii. This is actually a little dicey to use because this will exclude some things that might be useful. There might be a book that has 9 chapters on how the evacuation and relocation, how the internment went in the continental United States, and 1 chapter on how it went in Hawaii, but because we excluded anything that mentioned Hawaii, it would exclude that book. So not always the best operator to use, but it's there if you need it. And then the last operator is or. It's the broadest, and it can be problematic in its own right, but useful in specific circumstances. So for example, I said I was looking for information on very specific evacuation centers or internment camps in California. 2 of the more famous ones are Tule Lake and Manzanar, both centers where Japanese Americans were either housed temporarily or for most of the war. And I could search for Tule Lake and pull up everything on Tule Lake. I could search for Manzanar and pull up everything on Manzanar. I could do it in 2 separate searches. But by doing or, I could pull up everything on either of them in 1 search. Pulls up every record on Tule Lake, pulls up every record on Manzanar, and puts them together in 1 search. If you're using common terms, you just get massive results then. If you use 1 common term, get lots of records, and use another common term, gets lots of records, and join them by or, you get 2 huge sets, and then you get 1 even bigger set of records. But if you're searching for very specific things, very small things, the or is very helpful. So only 80 things on either of them. There is one more way to use OR, but you have to kind of figure it out yourself or type it in yourself. And if you remember when I started, when I first showed you and, I said, well, I want things on Japanese Americans relocation and Tule Lake. I want things on Japanese American relocation, maybe and Manzanar. Well, I want things on Japanese American relocation and Manzanar or on Tule Lake. Actually, the most effective way to use OR is to type it in yourself within one of these lines. And what this does, it takes, I think we had 237 records focused on Japanese American internment. And then within those 237 records, it looks for either items that talk about Manzanar or Tule Lake. So out of those 80 records that are in Manzanar Tule Lake and those 237 records that were on Japanese Americans, 46 of them were about both. 46 of them have the focus of the Japanese American internment and mention either Manzanar or Tule Lake. And so that's kind of, in a quick nutshell, a quick overview of what these connectors do and or not.